I have seen those that don't have a vital center to their lives and fall into a nihilistic disenchantment. The father of modern social science, Neil Durkheim, coined the term anomie to describe the condition in which a society provides little moral guidance to individuals. It is the breakdown of social bonds between an individual and a community. In our movement, we have nice sayings like, good without God, just be good, or no gods, no masters, that simplify but also mislead how difficult moral decision-making is to make. I hear secular notables like Sam Harris and Michael Sherman appallingly say that to just follow the science. Science is all we need, philosophy is dead. Or Peter Singer and Joshua Bell automatically tell us that utilitarianism is the one and only complete moral theory. How many of us here can explain to someone what the ultimate goal of morality is and how to achieve it? How should we make moral decisions? What undergirds social morality, or secular morality, or is it just all relative? How many of us can explain all of this? Some would see science answering all the questions and everything we need to know, ignoring many of the tools that the humanities have given us. But then we see there are many sources of knowledge. Democracy and the concepts of human rights are gifts from history and civilization. Philosophy gives us tools for critical thinking and a conceptual framework to evaluate the world. Literature and art heighten our awareness about what values are important. Again, we see rather shallow answers by some in our part. We can laugh at those that say that morality comes from the Ten Commandments and knowledge from the Bible. But if you study these fundamental questions, do you have confidence in your own answers? Do you have an elevator speech to tell someone if they ask you? What do our foundations stand for, if anything? Can you answer Socrates' question on how we shall best live? Do you still feel the excitement that comes from challenging your old ideas? Carl Sagan said, we make the world significant by the courage of our questions and the depths of our answers. How well are we doing on both courage and depth? A deep search shows, distressingly to some, that there is no certainty, no absolute foundations for any knowledge, no absolute moral theory, no single moral goal, no absolute meaning in life, no one right way to live our lives. All scientific knowledge ends up being tentative, fallible, and probabilistic. Knowledge emerges, though, from a combination of many methods laced together into a whole web of belief. Regarding ethics, while there is no one complete moral theory, we find that secular morality is more like painting a picture with many hues and colors. It is without mathematical certainty, like a formula. Like finding the truth, it requires a whole garage of tools. None complete, none without problems. If you go in a garage to fix your car, you don't just need a hammer or a screwdriver or pliers. You need a lot of tools. We also find that ethical dilemmas are inherent in all of our decisions, as all of our highest values are in radical conflict with each other. Every value we have has downsides and trade-offs. It is what Isaiah Berlin calls a tragic liberalism. I love that phrase. We also find that there is no one ethical goal here. We end up with multiple goals, multiple foundations, multiple moral tools. Does all of this mean that secular knowledge and morality is hopelessly adrift, nothing more than one's choices? Does it say that nihilism is correct? No, it does not. We don't need certainty to gain knowledge. The world is indeed relative, but it's not arbitrary. Also, we don't need absolute ethical paths and goals to make good, confident decisions for the betterment of ourselves, others, and the biosphere. We just need to do the best we can with what is a messy situation. Many people, if not most, don't like messy, ambiguous situations, but it's what we have. We are not helpless, but challenged. And by the way, recent studies throughout the world in various cultural classes have shown that there really is a difference between liberals and conservatives. You can predict with 86% probability if the person's going to be a liberal or conservative by the size of their amygdala. They're basically how fear-based we are. How much are you afraid of things, the fears of the other, homophobia, all the war and things like that. So we know that there's actually a biological basis for this that's going on. But one of the main things is conservatives and liberals differ in is being able to handle ambiguity. Remember I told you about the problem. We have ambiguous cases, in many cases, on our decisions in life. Liberals can handle ambiguity much better than conservatives, where they can, in black and white, absolute terrorists. But a century ago, the founders of modern-day humanism were much more focused on discovering the best ways to live a secular life. They had even more problems with the religious right, but put more of their efforts toward looking inward rather than outward. Betterment of society, character, and honor were dominant concerns for them. To say today, criticizing religion consumes way too much of our efforts. Why humanism? Because we want to devote our lives to profound ideals. That's what those kids want here at Coastal Christian High School. We want to answer the fundamental questions of existence. We are looking for passionate life commitments beyond our own needs. We are looking for ideals born of conscious reflection in the glaring light of knowledge. As the progressive educator John Dewey wrote, we are looking for those ideals and ends so inclusive that they unify the self. Religion exists because people want a whole integrated story of life. We want a North Star to guide us. We want to structure our lives around profound ideals. As the philosopher George Santayana said, to feel beauty is a better thing than to understand how we come to feel it. To have imagination and taste, to love the best, to be carried by the contemplation of nature, to and this is the important line, a vivid faith in the ideal. All this and more, a great deal more than any science can offer. When Santayana refers to a vivid faith in the ideal, he is talking about humanism. Humanism asks us to search for and commit ourselves to our highest ideals, our noblest sentiments, our greatest values, and what civilization and science tell us matters most. Humanism is a blend of both the Enlightenment and the Romantic traditions, and say that this world is all and enough. It is a whole worldview, which an open-ended, evolving life stance, where, as Bertrand Russell said, he described the good life as that one which is guided by reason and motivated by love. Notice he didn't say it the other way around. Guided by reason and motivated by love. This is what the students at Coastal Christian High School are looking for. Our hearts long for an integrated whole view of life, where our ideals match reality. We long for a vital center to our lives that both grounds us and inspires us. A vision of grander authenticity to our lives, not just smaller truths. All of us long for an existence, an evocative, whole story, and higher vision of life that lifts our hearts, moves our society, pushes us to higher meanings, and ennobles our lives. Some may find that integrated whole story is already here with us in the balanced humanist secular life of here and now, as we accept the exhilarating challenge of a responsible truth, search for truth and meaning. The humanist life stance is based on our values, not our beliefs. These values encompass open-minded critical thinking, science, justice, freedom, tolerance, democracy, reason, compassion, human rights, all people's inherent worth and dignity, and the importance of human flourishing. These are just some of the values that hold our beliefs together. We can't afford the luxury of just critiquing religion. We must tell our alternative story so that anyone contemplating change, like those high school students, will know that a non-religious worldview can support them, inspire them, and comfort them. That knowledge of science, while tentative, is surely firmer than blind faith. That the exhilaration of focusing on the here and now is much more meaningful than otherworldliness. That hope and love are certainly better than hate and divisiveness. That compassion and responsibility can be balanced with self-interest and freedom. That service to others may actually be our highest calling. The ambiguity inherent in all of our value, ethical, political choices need not paralyze us, but it does make it even more important that we reflectively consider all of our choices. Humanist ethics derives its power from affirming all people's inherent worth and dignity. It realizes if justice is to be given, only we can give it. If love is to be given, only we have the power. In this moment, in this hour, real suffering exists, and only we can bind the wounds. This world certainly is all enough to fill us with joy, wonder, hope, and awe, and that is our natural birthright. Now is our time. Now is our chance to move society toward reason and the good life. Now is the time for society to come out of the dark ages of theocratic control and ideological control towards human fulfillment. We cannot falter in the face of certain hostility or our own inherent ambiguity. Neither can we stand by, and this is important, idly hoping for a secular society to automatically shape itself. It won't. It is our duty to show that a secular world need not end in enemy and terrorism. It is our obligation to demonstrate that we can build communities that embrace progressive, ethical, humanist worldview of human and global good. And I thank you.
Entertain some questions,
Right.
comments.
Definitely will answer some questions. Please.
Comment. I mean, you can comment on it, but I don't know if you saw this week, some big sociological studies were published in some fine magazines, and they found out they works. And it's kind of like it's fuel to the other side of all science now, so to speak. And I read it, some portions of it, and when I read it, I said,
the media gets sucked into this stuff all the time.
pardon?
The media gets sucked into stuff all the time. If you noticed it used to be, especially Newsweek magazine, used to have, especially Time too. Like once a year they have to do something on the Bible, you know,
Okay.
boost publication, you know, that kind of thing. But this is what we got. But look at those numbers I gave. The seculars are there. We're not organized, and we haven't given a secular worldview that's meaningful to all of these people.
But isn't it true, though, if you look at who owns and controls the media, they're going to go to a religious source for commentary before they ever come to any
That's
else.
right. That's right. Yeah. Otherwise, because you know what will happen if they publish a piece on atheism or humanism, they would be killed.
But But FFRF, AHA, Americans United, all put out press releases on all the major issues. When's the last time you ever saw anything quoted from Royce Beckhardt in the New York Times?
No, they're not going to do that. You know, they'll be, if they stick their necks out too far, let's be honest, we know what will happen. The fundamentalists will all ban that shirt, that magazine.
Well, I think it's a matter of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, you know, that kind of thing. We do now have elected legislators who have come out as being humanists, and they feel much more comfortable talking about themselves as humanists that are for, you know, human compassion and reason and all
Royce
that.
Beckhart's put that coalition together, the Free Thought Coalition, and to be honest with you, I'm surprised that they stuck their necks out that far. And they're already getting, that group is already getting lambasted and everything else. But they're really just talking about basically religious freedom and standing up for secular rights.
There's safety in numbers.
We have a lot more numbers than we think we do. When I get these numbers out, by the way, in other groups, when I get like the Coastal Christian Eyes, they can't believe there's that many, you know, because they think, well, everybody's Christian. Yeah, Beth.
You talk about the individual and how the individual can embrace many of the premises of humanism. But what about our need for community? How do we manage that? You know, you talk about, you know, how it is more comfortable to be a humanist, and I agree with that. But
that's why we need human communities, because, well, you know, it's different in Europe. In Europe, everybody still lives within 50 miles of where they grew up. And they have a humanist community. Their community at large is the humanist community because it's embedded in the Enlightenment tradition throughout Europe. You know, when you go there, it's everybody was. And I ask somebody who's humanist, they go, oh, of course everybody is. But here, of course, you know, we have religious domination. But if you just go to theological schools, they'll tell, everybody will tell you, the number one reason people go and join and stay in a religion is community. That's the number one reason. And so we have to deal with communities. I was just out in Phoenix speaking out there. They got a huge building, you know, this size, and you know, it's amazing community and supportive community. I think we need more of those in the United States. It's hard because, especially younger people today, they don't want community. They don't see the need for it. You know, maybe you saw the book some years ago, Bowling Alone. Everybody's isolated. This is one of the problems when we've lost institutional respect because people don't, you know, live isolated lives. The problem is, none of us is as smart as all of us. And it's in the community we really, really learn. But also we need that support from each other. We don't absolutely need it. Yeah, you can live alone, but it's a hell of a lot better to be in a community. And the studies, by the way, on longevity show that. You know, they say, oh, people religiously live longer than humanists. No. Actually, what it is, it's all if they're in a humanist community or not. Totally depends upon community support. Yes, Scott?
Could you spend a moment talking about one of the other issues I know that you have some thoughts about, and that is the relationship between humanism and Unitarian Universalism?
Yeah, well, I got a book back there on it.
It's right here.
Yeah,
Remaining balance.
as I mentioned, Suzanne, I met the Unitarian Church, and it meant so much for me. It helped me grow so much that I would have never done on my own. There's an example of community. At one time, back in the 50s, 60s, believe it or not, Unitarian Universalism was the largest growing denomination in the country. Believe it or not. And it was 85% humanist. When we started off, if you were to talk about God in the Charlotte church, they would have been laughing, you know. Now, you know, it's gotten closer and closer. My book is Regaining Balance. And it used to be the focus of Unitarian Universalism, or Unitarianism, the focus of it was reason in religion. That switched when it got the merger with Universalists, and now it's radical pluralism. And it's even gotten more so. The present president of the Unitarian Association is a theist, but she's married to a minister in I think Lutheran church and such. We're getting closer and closer. People don't realize how close we are to a merger with the UCC. 25 out of 120, I know it's more than that, it's like 30 or so, churches in Massachusetts are already dual UCC. So they had a choice, which way to go. Were they going to go humanism, or are they going to go radical pluralism? They chose radical pluralism, which basically means you're going backward, because then you're going to get consumed and subsumed by the theocratic right. That's the problem. You lose your soul, and it becomes a religion without religion, because you don't talk about it. Every Unitarian church is different. If you've been in one, you've been in one. So there are some that are very, very humanist. Yet if you go up to Minneapolis, all the First Unitarian Church up there, in the First Unitarian Society, they're going to use church up there. It's a big mega church, and it's all humanist, straight human. But some of them are so theocratic, theologically right. It's like, it almost more than some of them. I don't know where it's going. I think they made a bad decision. Remember, follow the money, and a lot of ministers, frankly, they're going to toe the line if they want to keep their jobs. That's the sad truth. Yes, ma'am.
And follow the training. It seems like there aren't humanist teachings being taught at the theological training schools. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, Bill Murray, the past dean at the Beagle Lombard, I taught there too, humanist classes. He always taught a class on humanism. After he died, it went away. And by the way, I offered to do a class there at Beagle Lombard this year, and they rejected it, saying the issues weren't pertinent to their mission.
Yeah.
I was a bad boy, I wrote that guy.
Which basically
Had a
says
clear letter of my feelings.
humanists
about
aren't
that.
pertinent in the congregations.
In the past, if I were to say, hey, I'm in town, they would have offered up. But they'd rather teach literally basket weaving and
Astrology.
astrology, whatever. Trying to be all things to all people. Yes, sir.
I understand, or I suspect, that we have a gene for religion, and can humanism fit into that? And I look at a lot of things in terms of evolution, and we like food because if we didn't eat, we would die. We like sex because if we didn't have sex, we wouldn't breed. And we like religion because it binds the community or the tribe, and it gets them all pulled together for whatever.
Yeah, I don't think it's a stretch to say we have a gene for religion. We have a lot of instinctual evolutionary adaptations. One is for authoritarian leaders, right? 2 is for community. 3, people want to have an answer for the unknown. I use the example in my book that if you're back in the Paleolithic times and you're sitting around a campfire, you're looking up at the stars and everything else, and the son asks the father, "What are those?" He doesn't know. It maybe just holds in the big curtain, light shining through it. But he's going to make up a story. We're storytellers. We have to, Michael Kazinga at Harvard, he says we have an area of the brain called the interpreter. We like to make up stories, and we have to interpret everything. And so that's where it all started. But, we know a lot better answers nowadays. Yes, ma'am.
It has been demonstrated to be a physiological area in the brain that is receptive to spirituality.
Sure.
So that it may not be defined in the genes, but the genes are defining
Well, you
the
can
brain
have-
in such a way that
You can have religious experiences if you actuate those things. There's a thing called the God helmet. You can put it on, and about 75% of people, if you put that on, it stimulates certain areas of the brain. You can have visions of wholeness, oneness with the universe, and that kind of thing. See God in one sense or another. Yes.
Over the last, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 years, there's been a lot of different critiques of humanism, not coming from the religious or theological, but more the philosophical, more scientific.
Postmodernism especially.
So I was interested in your thoughts about that, but in particular, I've been reading, probably a lot of people have, Yuval Harari's books, and he has a critique of humanism as well. But I'm just curious about...
I'm not familiar with his critique, but one of the main ones, and this is where we got all kind of goofed up in Unitarian Universalism, went into it, became infatuated with postmodernism. Here's what's interesting, because I've taught classes on postmodernism, hundreds of books on it. People say, well, when you read that, I say, well, know your enemies. But also, there's a lot of truths in there. Yeah, but you have to take a big sift and get those little gems out of there. But what happened? Here's what happened. I'm going to try to make a long story short, if I can let me think here a second. During the 30s, we really didn't know what was going on in Stalinist Russia. There was all these rumors that there was all these purges and everything, but it was just rumors, and people said, oh, that's just right-wing conspiracy theories and everything else. By 37, 38, we pretty well knew that it was true. That the gulags were going on, and eventually we learned that 30 million died in the gulags. So leftists in Europe had a problem. How do you justify that, And the way they justified that was that they said, well, the reason that this occurred is because of reason itself. Reason turned against itself. And two guys, Horkheimer and Werner, wrote a book called The Dialectic of the Enlightenment. And it essentially says it was the Enlightenment turned reason against itself as a tool for power and control. Now, we all know that reason can be rationalization. We use the term power and control. So they're right on that, but that was what they said. They never would say, of course, that communism itself was flawed, but that's where it came from. Interestingly enough, during that period, the existentialists were all humanists. Sartre even wrote his most famous essay was Existentialism as a Humanism. It's one of those only a few readable things that he wrote. But after that, a guy, some of these postmodernists out of what's called the Frankfurt School in Europe, School for Social Theory, developed this whole concept of postmodernism. And it's that there are no universals, that it's only the particular, and that there's no absolute truth on anything. Out of this, though, came Foucault, who realized that Sartre so dominated the philosophy that he would never make a break. And he even said, he realized that he needed, if he was going to get attention, anything Sartre was for, he had to be against. So he wrote, anti-humanism and everything else. Later on, by the way, in his life, he completely flipped it around, he was a humanist. But anyway, early on, that's where a lot of that came from. But can you say, and I've got some stuff on this in my book, but can you say that reason can be used as a tool for power control? Absolutely. Are there always things that are unspoken and subconscious going? Of course, we've always known that. But it doesn't mean that's all there is. Is there truth? Of course there's truth. It's hard to find. And as I mentioned, it's always tentative and probabilistic and fallible. But still we have some truth. Science works because it works. It tests against itself. And it's the only self-correcting form of knowledge. So I go on and on. Where did that all come about? But that's how the real origins came about. It was basically Foucault trying to figure out how he can make a mark in philosophy, and also the communists trying to figure out, what happened. How can we rationalize communism with what we saw happen in Stalinist Russia? That's a brief thing, but it's a lot deeper than that. But that's how it all started. Yes.
I tend to feel that humanism is an optimistic, maybe glass half full kind of evaluation of life, and many religions are pessimistic, and you follow a religion to save yourself from the fears and the dangers that are out there. And I think it's been shown another new study came up that Joanne talked about it with us at the Science Sunday, but so much of pessimistic thought carries the day. We've seen it in politics, we've seen it...
Fear sells.
Yeah.
What sells more than fear?
And so how does humanism compete against that? We're selling something that's a wonderful thing, but people don't want, they want to save themselves from something else. I have a friend who tells me that there's many less shootings that have happened in religious schools, religious high schools, than in public high schools. In Texas.
There are less religious.
Wait, let me talk. So he says, he says, you like science, why can't you just take that fact and realize that religion serves a good purpose? And my response is, I think that there have been quite a few shootings at different types of schools in Texas, but there have been no school shootings in Japan. We should all become Buddhists.
Right, well, especially when you look at the various cultures, Denmark and all the Scandinavian countries, Japan. Actually in the United States, only 0.02% of people in the prison system, by the prison system's own numbers, are non-believers. So it just doesn't correlate. But anyway,
But how do we sell a positive?
Well, selling a positive is hard, and sometimes you got to use them. Actually, it's funny you mentioned this because I was just having a conversation about, in this political climate, do you have a negative attack there or a positive one? I'm sorry, negative had some. They worked. So do you say, I'm a candidate and I'm going to sell you universal health care that's going to lower the cost of care? Or do you say, you know what, get universal health care with me or your family will die? That's extreme examples, but you get the idea. I'm sorry, we can't deal with what we'd like to be, the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. We have to deal with reality as who we are. We're human animals with two basic evolutionary functions, survival and reproduction. And if you don't tap those two real core things, survival and reproduction, you're not going to reach people that well. You can reach them, but not as powerful as somebody saying, we can't let those immigrants in because they're going to kill me. Oh, let's just all love each other. It doesn't sell as well. It's tough. This is what we got. And like I say, there is a difference between liberals and conservatives, how well they respond to fear and anger and hate. Yeah, John?
Just back to morality. How do we deal with different regions of the world have different moralities and like Western morality? So, we can't actually say...
So is it the basic question is all relative? Well, it's interesting. Some people probably postmodernists bring up, there's no morality because it's all relative. Well, in fact, studies by Brown and things like that show that there are over 200 universal attributes to human beings, no matter if it's a hunter-gatherer society or humans. We have certain basic characteristics of what it means to be human. Now, it's the nature-nurture thing. How much of that can be warped and changed with culture? Absolutely. We can justify, we can bend all that. But underneath, there's a core of humanity, of human experience that is there and universal. But the basic thing is, morality works because it works in human societies. If you're out on the African veldt, where we started all of this, right? Out in Savannah, and you're in a little tribe, and let's say you're lying and cheating or stealing or maybe hurting people in your tribe, you get kicked out. What happens? You're as good as dead out there, alone. With all the lions out there, everything, you're as good as dead. And so, morality isn't out there in the universe. It's emergent property out of who we are as human beings, as social human beings. It's also what more rationally works. It just works. So it doesn't matter what society it is, force, fraud, and things like that, it just doesn't work. in societies. You can work for a while, but it doesn't get you very far eventually. That's where morality comes from. It's in our genes, and it's in who we are as an emergent property of being fully human in society.
So how do you resolve then, like, how they work in the Middle East, or how Asians, like Japan or China, where ain't nothing about stealing proprietary information?
Well, see, there's a morality there that's a little bit different. They don't believe in stealing. My sister was in Japan one time and left the hotel, was going to the airport. They sent a car with a metal coat hanger to give her because she left it in the closet. But there is it justifies the mean kind of morality. So there's lots of different moralities, but there's a moral theory underneath it, and it's that my society needs to do this to survive and reproduce.
You can steal from the other tribe, you just can't steal from your tribe.
Yeah. That's and that's where humanism is different, because we're widening the circles of compassion. That's the whole point. And looking at the inherent worth and dignity of all people. And it is not normal. It is not normal. We're an inherently tribal culture. We're mainly interested in morality, as it helps our own selves, our progeny, our children, etc., and our friends close to us, our tribe. So we're going against the grain. There's no question about it. But it's what works for the betterment of all. Yes,
I want to comment on his thing. My mother, she always told me from childhood, I grew up in India with poverty around me. My mother said, never tempt anybody. If American companies do not put their fence around their intellectual property and leave the door open, they will steal. If you tempt them, they will steal. So same thing happened. I worked at government, U.S. Department of Energy with nuclear stuff. Everything was left open. So people stole. People from other countries, poor countries, it's just a survival. American embassies gave out false visas to people who were not worth that visa. It is when your fences and keep your stuff secure. Don't blame others.
I want to also, before I forget it, one of my hats that I wear is I'm president of the Humanist Foundation. The Humanist Foundation is a separate 501c3 organization aligned at the hip with the American Humanist Association to supply long-term funds. We've actually saved the AHA 3 times. In the present building, we help buy, etc. It's amazing the history of what we've been able to do. But I've got some brochures back there. I urge everybody here to think about putting the Humanist Foundation in your will. Maybe a little bit, maybe like 5%. Just remember, most of your children are going to spend it within 2 generations. All that money's going to be gone. So if you want to express your values, to transcend who you are, and if you want to have a legacy for yourself of those values that are most important to you, and this is one of the few ways that humanists can gain immortality, because we do put this in a perpetual trust and provide money every year, then a certain 5% of our money goes to the AHA. But this is a way for you to do it. We also do annuities, much better than any typical investment out there. Typically between 5 and 8% interest rate. At the end of the time, if there's any money left, then it goes to the AHA. That's how we make the money. But very good rates. If you're interested, I got a brochure back there, or you can talk to me about all of that. But any other questions here? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to touch again on morality and ethics. And I don't know if I misunderstood you, but I think you said something about Sam Harris says just follow the science. And I think he says a lot more than that. What I've taken from him is he says that the aim is to do that which enhances human flourishing and that which reduces human suffering. So I think you can take pretty much...
But see, that statement in itself is a not scientific statement. The only way you justify it is through philosophy. This goes back 100 years ago. The logical positivists said everything we know has to be empirically verified. Well, then you ask the question, how do you verify it? Empirically verify that. So, yeah, he's starting with that, but he says to ignore philosophy. Philosophy's dead. It's not dead. It's hard. It's the core of what he's trying to say. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to continue to say that a lot of the things that we think are not measurable by science truly are. There may be many right answers, but I think you can take so many instances of cultural institutions or cultural trends, like foot binding in China, and say, did that enhance human flourishing, or did
Exactly. That's what we can use science.
Slavery, female genital mutilation. And sometimes there's no easy answer, but often if you have those as your goals, your
Human flourishing.
your touchstones,
But
that's...
see, again, that is philosophy. That isn't science. That's the end goal.
No, but you can get there. I think
Exactly.
a lot of the things, like corporal punishment, we can have all kinds of philosophical arguments about it, but there are actual scientific studies that can tell you some of the answers
Right.
of those quandaries, right? So I don't think it's always just like, oh, it's
See,
just
the
all
end goals for
relative.
us and a Christian on that point might be totally different. We're looking for human flourishing being our goal. They're not. They may be looking for authoritarianism. So the end goals are absolutely important if you're going to use the science to try and get there. I absolutely agree. You have to use science. We want to use science to help us get to those goals. But how do we get those goals? That's another major question. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm wondering about how you learn morality, and I think a big part of it is when you're little, and during childhood, your parents...
You learn it.
You do, and then if you have a lot of trauma and violence, you're screwed.
It just doesn't. We learn it. It's like I told these kids at Christian high school, I said, what would happen if you stopped believing in God right now? Would you go out and rape, murder, kill? No, because you learn differently how to act on people.
Mostly love.
Any other questions like that? Yeah, well, let's take one more question. We'll finish up.
I was going back to this whole idea of community, and over the years I've noticed that that humans are very much like dogs and cats. There's those groups of people who stick together, and then there's the other groups that sort of wander and split up and act as individuals. And I've noticed that humanists tend to be the cats of society, I think.
That's not always
And
good.
that's why I'm saying extra power.
It's not always good for us. I want to end on something. It was a talk that was given right here at this pulpit right here many years ago by Kendall Gibbons, a minister at that time. And at that time, she was challenged by another Unitarian minister about her humanism. They said, how can you believe that, and live a decent life and everything else? She got mad. She wrote this at midnight on Saturday night before the Sunday service. If there's no personality governing the universe and promising us love, justice, and meaning on some ontological bottom line, then it is ever more necessary for us, flawed and finite as we are, to give love, to enact justice, and build meaning here and now. Let there be only the cold whistling of the solar winds out to the ends of space. Let the past and future merge into a Mobius strip of endless, beginningless flow. Let there be no everlasting arms, no judgment, either indulgent or severe. Let there be nothing, nothing, nothing at all but what we are and what we have in this moment, in this matrix of energy matter, in this movement, in the dance of entropy. It is enough, more than enough. Measure pressed down, shaken together and running over. It is marvelous enough and terrifying enough, mysterious enough, holy enough to fill me with overflowing with wonder. The love I give and receive and withhold and reject is precious and is secret and sacred and not to be held lightly, precisely because that's all there is, not just a spoonful out of some inexhaustible supply. The justice I do or not do, taking care of at the end of the day, it's like a parent picking up toys, forgotten toys. Its opportunity is lost forever. And the suffering it results is real suffering, not ultimately wiped away by the tender hand of a loving God. How much sacred significance can we endure? Something about that reality is a needless, gracious gift. The eternal surprise that there is anything instead of nothing, and that the anything includes us and our awareness. Something about it makes us understand that we are painfully finite, that our time is limited, our individual abilities and understandings limited, that we are parts and participants in a project that endures way beyond us and is greater than ourselves. And something about that reality calls us, allures us, demands of us that we grow into all the wisdom and justice and love of which we are capable, because that is the fulfillment of the deepest reality of who we are. Look around you. Everywhere, on the sidewalks and byways of the world, women and men hunger for the meaning in life and find it in the ardent sod, the warmth of the sun and breath of air, in the miracle of the setting sun and the altar of the ocean, in the struggle of now, salted with wishes and dreams, in human love and understanding. The person who hungers for the meaning in life is you, it's me, it's each of us. Whatever words we try in vain to say what fills us, what makes us who we are, and out of that emerges demandingly our inherent worth and dignity. Surely possible. Oh yes, for every day we wake and make it so, and every breath we take says that unfathomable yes to life. That is all we have, that is all we know, that is our hunger and our fullness, and is beyond all we need enough. Thank you.